All righty. Well, hello everyone. Happy Math Crush Monday. I hope you're having a great start to your week. We are talking tonight about using what you have and how can we get more out of it. So this kind of came up, well, there's two different reasons. One is because personally, I have this issue. I have the issue where I get new things and then I don't take the time to fully learn them. And then I constantly want more new things. Okay, so a perfect example would be like a car, right? So I get a new car and I don't take the time to learn all the ins and outs of all the cool things that like my stereo can do or all the automations or all the buttons. And I might have that car for like 10 years and not ever really use it to its full capability because I didn't take the time to learn it fully at the start because I'm just too fast-paced of a person. Oftentimes I just want to like use it for what I think is cool and I just want to like start using it, right? Instead of taking the time to learn it and to know all the ins and outs. I'm that way with like specialty blenders, things in the kitchen. It doesn't matter. Like I'm constantly looking for the next thing of like, oh, I need that new chopper, like for the kitchen, even though I have devices that can do that. Like I have a KitchenAid that apparently can do that. And I didn't even know it could do that, right? That I've had for like 20 years. So that's my personal example, but it really does relate also to teaching and the teaching world in terms of just using what we already have and trying to understand it to its fullest before we start buying the extra things that we think it needs because we don't know if it already has it. Right? So this would be a case of frequent questions I get about, well, what does everyone do about, fact fluency? And what are you using for, I don't know, number talks and, whatever, like we can add a million things. And almost like 90% of the time I can say expressions already has it. Right? Like, oh, did you know that it actually does this, this, and this? Do you know in third grade it has X, Y, Z? Like whatever the case may be, our curriculum we already has a solution. We just may not understand what the solution is. And it's possible we don't like the solution. And so we want to go look for something different. But that feels different to me than just not really knowing if it has something. And then we instantly go to places like Teachers Pay Teachers because it's convenient, right? It's easy to go and just search in the search engine for something specific that we're looking for. Something cute pops up. It looks cute, has some bells and whistles. We're like, yeah, let's do that. The problem is that it's not really aligned to your standards or to expressions. Sometimes it is aligned to the standards, but oftentimes it's not aligned to the curriculum you're already using. And this takes us down the rabbit hole of what I find our school districts do a lot, which is unfortunate that we are also looking for what is the solution to our issues, meaning we all of a sudden have poor fourth grade scores, or we have our fraction census down in fifth grade, or our second graders don't know their math facts, or, we identify a problem and then we instantly go to, there must be something shiny and new that we need to fix our old problem, because if what we currently had worked, we wouldn't have that problem. Like, well, actually, no, that's not really a fair cross alignment, because really it's not working because we don't use it, or we don't know how to use it, or we don't know why it works, or we've lost track of how it works, whatever reasons. Okay, all of this happens constantly. So let me give you some examples and some things from expressions you may not really know that you have that you want to take advantage of. This is specifically why I did create the Math Genius Squad. Is I knew that there were gems in math expressions. Math expressions has really good bones. The skeleton is very strong, right? Meaning it has good research, it has good background, it is built like solid on the progressions, and everything connects. So kindergarten through sixth grade, things connect very purposefully and very intentionally, which is why I'm really skeptical of pulling in all these other outside things, thinking they're going to solve our problem, right? Like we need another intervention program. We need another, like whatever we need. Now we need to have number talks. We need to have this, like we've pulled in all these things thinking it's going to fix it, but it's not necessarily aligned, and that hurts us. Okay. So in the squad, I thought, okay, if we're going to pull in other things, it has to be aligned. It has to be built with expressions in mind, use the same vocabulary, use the same drawings, use all of that. Also, it was built because I really felt like we didn't really understand it well enough to implement it. And people were abandoning it before. I'm like, but you're not really even using it as it's designed. So until we are, we don't know whether or not it's working or not. So here's a couple examples. Fact fluency, right? So fact fluency is like a hot topic. I've been working on it actually the last couple of days a lot, putting out some new trainings and whatnot. And I'm like, there is a fact fluency protocol already in expressions. And most people, especially third grade, we skip it because it feels like we don't really understand it. Honestly, it just feels kind of overwhelming the way it's presented in the teacher's guide. So because it feels overwhelming, or we're not really sure we understand it ourselves, we go searching for all of these other things to fix our fact fluency issues. We look for computer programs, we look for time tests, we look for like games, like whatever it is. So that's one example. Like we already have actually a full routine in expressions, and I highly recommend that 4th, 5th, and 6th grade use the routine from 3rd grade if you're having issues, because guess what? That's how 3rd grade learned. So if we use the same protocol, the same visuals, the same language, it's like that connecting bridge for students. And now it's not starting over from scratch. It's methodical. It's based on a progression. It's not just, 100 facts as fast as you can, right? So I'm like, have you looked at what's already there? And if you're looking for that, by the way, you can go on my site for free. Like it's not, it's a part of the squad. They have extra stuff, but on my website, if you just log in, go to resources, math expressions resources, if you clicked fact fluency on that first page, you'll get brought to the entire routine, and I have everything you need there. If you are part of the virtual summit, same thing. I did an entire session. So if you were a VIP member, go look. It was probably one of the better sessions I've done on fluency, of just what does that progression look like, what's included, and how can we use materials that we've been given? Because the more you listen to Dr. Fusen, if you went to any of her sessions in the summit, the more you realize that every little thing is so intentional. And the reason that she put it in there and the research behind it, like it's pretty impressive. So fact fluency is one. Almost everything that someone says my students don't get. Okay, so I'm going to Teachers Pay Teachers right now to go find something I'm counting on. My first graders are really struggling with counting on. What they really mean is I'm going to go find like a cute worksheet, or I'm going to go find, right, like, a craft. I'm all for those things. I love things that are cute. The problem is that we're unaware of how much is actually in already our teacher's edition, or how intentionally it's being built. Those are examples of almost every time I can say, are you doing the quick practices? Are you doing daily routines? People are like, we have number sense issues. We have so many number sense issues. I'm like, are you doing daily routines every day, the way they're designed? And then I'm like, oh, well, no, we don't really have time. And we have limited math time. Like, oh my gosh. So we can't complain about it if we're skipping the components of the program that are supposed to be for that. Right. So for example, counting on is built into first grade's quick practice over and over and over again, because we know that once we learn it, that's part of the counting principles, the progression of counting. That's really hard for a lot of students. And it becomes harder because we have missing unknowns. We have two knowns. We have a missing total, like things start changing. And so we teach about it conceptually in the lessons, but what we know is that kids need to build it now, some fluency with it. They need time to get good at it, which doesn't mean they need necessarily another worksheet. Because I don't know if you've seen how many are in the expressions. There's so many workbook pages. It's crazy. I don't necessarily need another workbook page, but I do need practice with the skill. That's why it's in quick practice. Okay, so it's really on purpose. People will say things like, well, my students don't have number sense, like they're really lacking in understanding number, even if it's like number identification, counting higher numbers, skip counting, whatever. And it's all like, are you doing the daily routines? Because that's really what the purpose is. And there's been so many times we take the standards. I do this as an activity a lot with teachers. We take the standards, we take their quick practice and daily routines. And I say, just like start going, copying and pasting all the standards that apply to those particular slides, the quick practice and the daily routines. And next thing you know, they're covered. And a good 60-70% of them are not covered anywhere else. Like they are only covered if you're doing the quick practice and daily routines, because they need that much repetition and that much time to build. So if you're skipping those things, right? And you're going looking at them from other places. Like if you don't have time for the important components that are in expressions, you don't have time for some of those other things. Calendar is the same thing. A lot of us are doing our calendar time. I love calendar time. I love morning meeting. But if that is taking the place of doing daily routines, then I probably need to take out the math part of my calendar so I have time to do the daily routines. So I'm never going to say that there is a curriculum that is a be all end all, right? That it has, if it's every need, it's one size fits all, never. That just isn't realistic. But I would say that the reason that you purchased a curriculum was because you wanted systemic and systematic instruction that was as rigorous as the standard calls for. So if we're kind of hodgepodging and just picking and choosing what we want to fit in and then pulling things out, from other places, it's great if they're aligned and they fit a need that's not already being met. So there's always gonna be better ways to do things. So for example, number talks. Number talks are really popular nationwide right now. Your district might have a protocol on that, like they think we have to do these. Is there something we're doing? I would encourage you to go read Dr. Karen Fusen, the author of Expressions. Her just got a published article on that very topic. It's really enlightening, I thought. It's very well done. It just might give you a different perspective, but it's one of those things that I too felt like it's really increases kids' discourse. The issue is that in classrooms I was going into, it was like really cool, like very engaging. Kids were doing them, lots of discourse happening, and it had nothing to do with the topic of the day or nothing to do even with the standard. So are there times we're going to do that? Of course. But if our biggest issue, our biggest complaint is that we don't have enough time, then we don't have time to plug in some of those other things unless they're aligned. So that's what you'll find, like, especially in the Genius Squad. My members know this. If you're a member, say hi in the chat. If you're not a member, say hi. Let me know where you're watching from tonight. I'd love to know if you're even just watching things that are helpful to you, that you're learning, that you just didn't know that Expressions had it, right? So when we look at like number talk specifically in the squad, there's just some really great engaging number talks that I think are just fabulous. So we included them for you in our slide decks, but with the caveat of these are optional. If you're already mastering quick practice and daily routines and you've got a good flow for your lesson, please add this in. It's just going to make it better. But we made them aligned to the unit. So we said we put this one right here on purpose because it's aligned to the content that you're already teaching or that you just taught. So it's related. It's not something that's just, kind of fun and random, but not related. So I think, again, it's because we just don't know, and taking the time to align things is a lot of work. So that's the argument of, right, when we start pulling our districts or schools are saying, hey, you have to do all these extra things, like here's Expressions and I want you to do all these extra things. My argument is, well, you got to align them for us. You got to tell us where they fit and you got to tell us what we're taking out, because otherwise we're all trying to figure out how it goes together. All right, so let's talk about some other things. I had a list of some things that came up that I'm asked. So we talked about some things with, like the teacher's guide, that we teach from the teacher's guide. We don't teach from the workbook. That will help us. I said that last week. If you missed that training on Math Crush Monday, go back and watch it. That a lot of times we're missing what's there because we're teaching from the workbook. And when you teach from the teacher's guide, you're actually getting the rationale, you're getting the background, you're getting the problems and how we built the lesson before we ever got to the practice part, which was in the workbook. So sometimes we feel like it's missing because we didn't actually teach the lesson. We just taught from the workbook. So just a reminder, like teach from the teacher's guide, use what you need from the workbook and from all these other places to help build that concept, but you should start always from the teacher's guide, making sure that you're getting the heart and soul of the lesson. And then we can throw in some other things to make it better, as long as of course, it's aligned. Things like the first 10 days. If you're using the first 10 days right now, let me know in the chat. I'd love to know how it's going. But we wrote the first 10 days for the same thing. We know that we need to give kids more time to get acclimated to school, to build community, to get a growth mindset. I'm like, that's just not really like an active part of the lessons and Expressions. So what if we kind of built that in while we started our lessons and Expressions? So that's the type of stuff that you'll see when you're looking on my site. Is I'm trying to always make it something that is enhancing what's already there, making it more engaging, more hands-on without misalignment, right? Like without construing what the original intent is of the curriculum. Okay, so quick practice daily routines. I mean, we're going to do so much learning about this, you guys. So the challenge is coming up. Again, that is one of the things I get asked all the time. Like, where do we have for, or how are you fixing, or what if my kids don't get, and I'm telling you, like almost all the time, I'm like, well, are you doing the quick practices? Right? No, I don't have time. Well, that's why they don't get it. That's why they don't have it. That's why you're looking for something else, because it's right there. So the 18th, we're doing a challenge. We did it last year too. That again, it's just to help you understand what you may not know is even there, or what the purpose of it is, or how to really get it to work for your students. Okay, so make sure you sign up for that challenge. Just comment below challenge and we'll get you sent the link to sign up. It's totally free. We have brand new resources this year, like some really good stuff that we're giving during the challenge to help you be successful. So if you did it last year, again, sign up this year because you're getting all new stuff to help you be really successful in getting those going. Okay, so be sure to sign up for that as well. Okay, math tools. That's something else that comes up. Like, well, do you have, whatever? And I'm like they scaffolds, and how do I help my students better understand, let's just say making a 10, or they're really lacking these number sense skills. And again, you're going to hear me always go back first to the resources and tools that are in expressions. So the whiteboards, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we did another Math Crush Monday on the whiteboards. Go back and watch that. You can just comment whiteboards. We'll send you the link, where we talk about, that's one of the biggest mistakes we make, is we don't give kids the whiteboards. And that is one of the main tools that's providing them scaffolds, is building number sense. It doesn't feel like it, like sometimes we don't make all those connections ourselves. And then as soon as I explain like how it's connected to whatever skill you're doing, then all of a sudden it's like, mind blown. It's like, oh, I had no idea. Well, of course I'll have my kids use it, right? Which is another reason that I really want you to invest in that teacher's edition. Or if you're in the Math Genius Squad, just watch my videos, because that's my intent. My intent is to teach you the intent and make sure you're getting to the heart of why we're using some of those tools. But the Math Expressions Whiteboard is one of the #1 tools. The secret code cards is another important tool. If your students are lacking number sense, you don't need to go out to go look for all these extra activities. You really don't. You need to do quick practice. You need daily routines. You need to provide the in-lesson supports with all the drawings, not going to abstract, and you need to use the secret code cards when it says to use secret code cards. Okay, so those things alone, even if I gave you like a list of 4 or 5 things, if you can say yes to every single one of those, that you're doing that, and you're still seeing number sense issues in your school, then let's have a conversation, right? But until we're using some of those really important components, we're just not utilizing it to its full impact, right? Like me using all the features in my car, or of my blender, or like whatever. Like I've got to take some time to really learn what it's capable of before I start going and buying more stuff, right? So I hope that's helpful tonight, just to maybe re-inspire you and invigorate you as you're starting the new school year again, and you're getting, probably blasted with all these advertisements and other things and cute things and, what other activities. Just make sure you start with expressions. Start with the bones, the good stuff, right? Make sure you're doing what it already offers, or at least have given it a good try in a progression of years. And then if you're still seeing issues, then let's come back and have conversations and see if we can really nail down why. And then of course, we're going to supplement with some other things to make sure that your students are getting what they need, because every class is different, and you and I both know that. All right, friends, would you say below with something that might be helpful to you tonight? I hope it was helpful just thinking through this. Hi, Kristen. So glad that you're here again. So supplementing with the computer programs okay, this is a good example, Melissa. She said for like IXL. Okay, so the visuals are important, right? PMT, I would rather supplement with something like Personal Math Trainer first before I supplemented with something like IXL. Why? Because it's aligned to expressions. So the Personal Math Trainer on Think Central is aligned visually. Like, so if we're using 10 sticks and circles, so is a Personal Math Trainer. If we're talking about place value sections, so is a Personal Math Trainer. The language and the drawings are consistent. And I think that's really important for students. Now, do I also believe they should have flexibility? Of course. Should they be able to apply it to other platforms? Yes. I'm just really careful with things like IXL, that I am extremely purposeful. And I only use things like IXL in my when block, my what I need block, or on my reteaching days. It is not a part of my regular core lesson, as long as I'm still saying I can't fit it all in. If I can't fit in the meat and potatoes, right, of the lesson, I'm not trying to fit in all these other things. One of the other ones that's really guilty of this is iReady. Okay, so iReady is the same thing. We're like mandating that our kids have so many minutes. The purpose of iReady is a diagnostic tool to provide then additional support and intervention. That means it doesn't belong in my core block. I have a lot of standards. I have a lot to cover in my core block. I have to be truly focused on core curriculum. That means things like IXL, iReady, etc., all have to be outside of my core block and that when or what I need math block, right? Otherwise, we're just chasing our tails, right? It's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like, I think I'm helping them by giving them this extra practice and XYZ, but reality is they're not even getting through the main content over here. So now I'm robbing them of those skills, right? It just doesn't ever pan out. So I just prefer that it's very intentional. If you're going to use IXL, you look at it to say, okay, I'm assigning specific things to those students, and I have vetted it to make sure it's not completely different from what we're teaching in class. Like, it's not teaching the shortcut method to my second graders when I'm not even taught that yet, and I'm not planning on it for a while. Do you see what I mean? Okay, so I'd be careful about that. Oh, the first 10 days. Okay, so Melissa said that she used the first 10 days and had to pick and choose. That's fine. But the ladybug drawing is so Melissa, you must be teaching 4th grade. I think that's where I have that ladybug activity. I love that. So thanks for that feedback. Okay, Kristen says, I skipped the quick practice and fluency checks until last year. And then she started doing them. And now she says they're a game changer. So that's just it's a good example of when we stay committed to something and we just are open-minded, like, okay, I have to be honest, like Kristen's being honest. She's saying, I didn't like them. I didn't really do them, okay, to what they were supposed to be. And then I kind of reframed it and thought, okay, she joined the Math Genius Squad. She had some more resources for it. And she's like, I'm going to give it a full go again and just be committed to it. And I think, Kristen, you did the challenge last year too. And now she's like, oh my gosh, a game changer. But it wasn't because she wasn't doing them right necessarily. It's just because she didn't give it a full go. Like, she needed to just clean slate, be open-minded about it, try again, and use them the way they were designed, right? Okay, so there's some thoughts for you. I'd love to know what you're thinking as well, or other ideas, other questions you have for me. I'm not going to say you shouldn't use all these other things. There's some really great, cool stuff out there. I just want to make sure it's aligned, and that if you're putting something in, that you are being very thoughtful about what you might be taking out, and that you're taking out the right things. And sometimes when we don't know, especially my first year with math expressions users, really, if you're in your first 2 to 3 years of math expressions, you just don't really know what you don't know yet. You don't really know all the things that expressions has. And granted, there's schools I work with for 10 years and they still don't really, they didn't even, I'll say something like, I didn't know that was in there, right? So it's just impossible for us to know everything. But in your first 3 years, you're really figuring out how it builds and how it's designed. So to start supplementing right away in those first 2 years is really risky, because it's hard to get these implementation years back where you give it like a full go with your full effort. So I just caution you on that. All right, friends, I think that's it. I'm not seeing any other questions or comments right now. Anything else you want or need, please put it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Push back if you want to counter argue that, like, nope, I don't think it has this, and so I plugged in that. Great. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to talk more about what you used and why it didn't work, because again, it's not a one size fits all, right? But we just want to make sure we've given it a full go before we decide. All right, I think that's all I've got, my friends. Have a great night. Happy Math Crush Monday. Don't forget to join the Quick Practice Daily Routine Challenge. Again, it begins on the 18th, but we need to get you all the stuff to start it. We're giving prizes. It's going to be cool stuff. So just comment below challenge and we'll get you the link. And again, it's all free. We'd love to give you all those great things. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.